Advanced English Arabic Learning Session 65. A Star-Spangled Career. Prophet was both the spur and the reward of enterprise. He's not averse to publicity. It has spurred fundamental change in the attitude in the community. Having an aversion to something. They also gave new impetus to the production of deluxe illustrated manuscripts of secular texts. I'd better go and get ready. They will harness the wind's energy and produce enough electricity to power all homes. You had better not tell Oliver. Lower levels of testosterone may suppress a man's mating efforts. If you wonder what the future holds, I enclose a copy of the job description. To repurpose the company's website. Oral contraceptives used to suppress ovarian function and prevent further cyst formation. Keep your nose clean, keep your nose out of my business. The British authorities are very thorough. You've ceased to try to deal with the issue. The child is being a thorough nuisance. A smoker caught red-handed throwing a butt on the ground. My salary is triple what I've been making here. Domestic and international politics were depicted as opposite sides of the same coin. The kind of beauty that will outlast youth. A tailwind has no effect on airspeed. We will face very strong headwinds next year. From the sublime to the ridiculous. We implore God's mercy for ourselves and the world, because in God's world there is peace for all. They had assembled at his behest. He cast himself on the mercy of God, imploring him to forgive his sins. Work slackens off during the holiday period. The brands are backed by slick advertising. The video is a tribute to the musicals of the 40s. A dandy-looking dude with a slick black ponytail. I am neither a scholar nor a critic of literature. She tumbled back against the slick and damp wall. The slick is a serious threat to marine life. My mother has never asked me about my love life or lack thereof. Always clear up after a picnic and never drop litter. Everyone's influenced by their parents' prejudices, or in my case, the lack thereof. The pig is one of a litter of 9 farrowed in July. This film does purport to have something to say, believe it or not. Incentives for farmers to let land lie fallow. Long fallow periods when nothing seems to happen. The purport of the message. He tied the knotted towels around his girth. The gaslit streets of Victorian London. Understanding the purport of the theme. He bludgeoned his way through the crowd. He contended that the delay was remedied before any harm or prejudice was caused. She had brooded over the subject 1,000 times. The vendors did not object or purport to rescind the agreement. I need a copy of the report on the double. To ignore the current situation would certainly doom the denomination to an untimely death. How do I stop letting people get under my skin? His constant boasting was beginning to get under my skin. She makes a rather sweet damsel in distress. High roller who caught wind of our speakeasy. Few people had spare cash for inessentials. The problem had begun to prey on my mind. Let's do a dry run of the commercial again. She wanted to make atonement for her husband's behavior. The remark caused a media feeding frenzy. He turned his attention in our direction. A torrent of abuse was unleashed. How do you run a dry run, a dummy run? The inscriptions on the dials of the clock tower were no longer legible. The production values have been vamped up. Her neat handwriting was flowing and legible, nothing like my slanted scrawl. Another gang member tackled him on the ground. Elapsed time is recorded between the emitted and returning signals. Sometimes we get caught up in our world. Long story short, I am hungry and tired. The European Union has given utmost importance to human rights in its constitution. The talks represent a thawing in bilateral ties. The Channel takes its commitment to impartial reporting with the utmost seriousness. To chase windmills, attacking imaginary enemies. They deserve our utmost respect and recognition for simply making the Olympic team. You have a reasonable excuse to neglect your work. It means we can enjoy impartial and unbiased commentary from now on. Modern sportsmen are lionized and faded. We should never carry more strident views. She was an instant celebrity, faded by the media. They worship and revere the jaguar as the Amazon's ultimate predator. Widowed mothers and orphaned children. Rituals showed honor and reverence for the dead. They should treat all students equitably. This event was a huge success since its inception last year. Constantinople withstood the Eastern invaders. It only take a little of yeast to leaven the bread. Her infidelity continued after her marriage. I did not accede to that application at the inception of the hearing. He was never able to resist a bargain or a freebie. The courts have upheld the rights of companies to refuse to accede to the pact. They have reneged on their promises to us. Our bedrock values of fairness and equality to choose the right path. The hotel is built on an outcrop of bedrock. The only place in the area where the ground is not permafrost. An infinitely competent mother of 3. Dubai police to conduct major mock drill today. As many as 34 vehicles have been involved. Most beginners heap their plate with their favorite items. They have no appetite for several of the exotic dishes. Their signatures should tally with their names on the register. This implies the continuation of a low-wage economy and huge tax handouts to the multinationals. The votes were being tallied with abacuses. She also amped up her own personal security. I was so amped about just being able to perform. The story and the manner of its telling are alike, hackneyed, dull, and pointless. On second thoughts, perhaps he was right. Asia shares pair gains on caution. History should be about forcing people to challenge their perceptions. Reinforcing hackneyed stereotypes of the past. Guys are so hung up about the way they look. It galled him to have to sit impotently in silence. This unpretentious poetess does not go about lecturing or delivering sermons. The straps that galled their shoulders. I heard the Sunday sermons not once, but twice, likewise the prayers. He nixed the deal just before it was to be signed. A solicitor who accepts a retainer owes a duty of care to his client. One of the other girls gave her ponytail a yank. British taxpayers do not want him squandering our tax money overseas. He gripped the bullet cartridge and yanked it out. They squandered the opportunity and will surely rue that decision. They have both reached out to the guests to no avail. I don't think we should compromise on those standards. Conjectures about the newcomer were many and varied. It is anticipated that the two sides will reach a compromise. Many conjectured that the jury could not agree. A compromise between commercial appeal and historical interest. He was suffering from total amnesia and dementia praecox. France has been reluctant to relinquish the remaining pieces of its colonial empire. He took several moments to compose himself, visibly struggling for control. Everyone spots the onset of dementia in a loved one differently. I felt that you were coquetting with me. A coquettish girl. Communication may be easier because they can compose what they are going to say. The grass was regrowing within days of being burned to a frazzle. He has incurred much criticism from his academic peers. That scoundrel sets a bad example for the other young men. Dozens of fluffy, chirping chicks hatched out. The teachers made spiteful little jokes about me. A chandelier dripping with glass lustres. A drugstore selling magazines, newspapers, and sundries. The teenagers also impersonate a number of other characters. Potatoes bruise easily, so treat them with care. And those who live in refurbished parts of inner cities have enclaves of their own. Large parts of the world continue to be enclaves of extreme hardship and poverty. The path was dark, yet I slowly found my way. Liberals see immigrant communities as ethnic enclaves that retard the development of American individualism. Further research may yet explain the enigma. The whole tenor of the book. They'd staked out her house for half a day. The whole tenor of the day changed. I trust the Commission to understand the tenor of the legislation. We expect them to arrive on the morrow. On the morrow, they attacked the city. It contains all parts of the grain like the bran, the outer husk and the germ. Marx's phrase, the opium of the peoples. The introductory section aims to sensitize students to the methodology of the course. She kept vigil at the bedside of her ailing son. They staged a protest vigil outside Parliament. The model isn't averse to using her body. The reporter had a right to assert the privilege for non-confidential information. He has been accustomed all his life to wealth and privilege. Risk-averse investors. She was not averse to taking chances. There's a whole heap of things I ought to be filling my time with. The end. Coming next. Session 66.